if you're fitting one of these, this is for qualified and competent persons only, registered, that sort of stuff. Right, what we're doing, the rewire in the big property, we have a Easy9 compact 2-row, so dual board, double stack, what we call it, RCBO, fuse protected consumer unit going in. We have all our delicious cables that we've pulled in over here. We have our temp board with a 2-pole isolator outside, so we can isolate that. We're going to be fitting it today, putting the board together after it's already fitted, sort of the step-by-step guide of how we go about doing this sort of thing. We're leaving enough length on to dress it nicely, to putting the RCBOs in. You've got the neutral lead, you've got the fly lead for the earth, you've got the 100 amp terminal blocks for the bottom that allow it to go to the second DIN rail, surge, main fuse. We're going to get this up on the wall, roughly measure out what we want, drill it. We're going to do a top entry for the cables with a bit of 4x2 trunking, and then we're going to do some rear entry, find a knockout that we like the look of, that's going to bring over our tails to our main ISO. But obviously if you're fitting one of these, this is for qualified and competent persons only, registered, that sort of stuff. So any DIYers, try not to be fitting this at home because your insurance won't be valid and also it's not safe. Right, we've got a bit of sight line, so when I isolate the power, we've got our big power bank. I've got loads of my sight lights, I've got a uni light in my pocket, we've got a few other ones lying around. So main tails here, main cables above. We want to be sussing out which hole we want to bring it through for enough height to regs. Because this isn't a new build, regulation states where they need to be within a certain height is irrelevant. It's a rewire of an old property, so we can just go off what we want and what we deem fit. It's an older building. It was designed, the switches back in the day were up here and the sockets were almost on the skirting. So anything we've done to bring it to more modern standards is an upgrade. We can put it here so it can be accessed very easily, it's nice and neat, and it's going to be labelled better. It's just an upgrade than it was before. And we're putting also an LED emergency bulkhead light in here, so if the power ever trips, this will turn on, you can see what you're doing on the fuse board. So I'm going to go for this knockout here, top left, which will allow me to bring my cables in. So I can get that knocked out now. We can grommet strip that up. By grommet strip, I mean it's like a plastic sheathing that goes around to protect the metal burrs and metal edges, taking insulation off our cables. And once we've done that, really, we can turn the power off, isolate it properly, do our safe isolation procedure to make sure it's off, lock it off outside. Even though it's just me and Harry on site today, I don't know that the general public isn't going to walk by to the meter cab, which is just here, and turn the isolation switch on. Because Harry, as much as it's Christmas, probably doesn't want to give me CPR. Right, so we can get the tails through there. We'll turn power bank on now. We've got a plumber here as well, and so we need to make sure we've got a bit of power for him. There we go, turn all this off. It's locked off, it's isolated, it's padlocked. Always keep, there's 2 keys come to this padlock, keep them on your presence at all times because you don't want Harry getting annoyed at me and thinking, I tell you what, I'm gonna get one of them keys off the side. Get it in my pocket. I'm going to test for dead now, get my tester out, do all that, cut it off, and then we can slide that on, mark it out with the green magic dust. We'll get it drilled back to the wall, some good fixings. We want big washers, big screws, big plugs. Get this on, figure out what we want, and we can start chopping the top of the board out. So, where the trunking comes down, it's going to be smack bang in the middle of the board, so we can go and get the 4x2 trunking in a minute, measure out the thickness on top, we can get that cut out, strip that up, and then once we bolt the board back, we can start tucking some cables in and behind. Cables can run in quite close proximity to pipes as long as they're not touching, so the heat doesn't induce across and start melting the insulation and makes it crispy over time. Like, I wouldn't say running through the same hole in the joist, but a hole next to that one, you wouldn't really have too much of an issue. Right, we're going through the dab and I can quite clearly feel that that's just brick. I'm just going to double check with the torch. Yeah, I can see brick straight behind it. People are saying about RCD protection on tails. So the main tails are double insulated, 25mm and 16mm main earth. It's passed directly straight through into the meter box behind. So for my professional opinion, these don't need RCD protecting. Yes, they're through the fabric of a building, but they're directly backed onto the back of the fuse board, whereas there's going to be no other pipes, no other drilling, nothing going on. So I'm happy not to protect these. If you were going to protect these, 99% of installations in the whole UK with a back-to-back fuse board to meter box, you would have to put an RCD. Cost goes up, and then you got the difficult stuff of having selectivity between different RCDs, RCBOs. So this, to me, absolutely fine if this is what you're doing as well. Pop the plug directly on top of the plasterboard there. Screw it in with the wrong screwdriver, that makes sense. Just a little bit, and then we want to knock the plug directly into the brickwork, so.
Nice hammer.
Yeah. So knock them into your raw plugs, wall plugs, whatever you want to call them, are in the brickwork, because that's where you're going to get your strength. Just going to bring it slightly to the right, because the way these holes are positioned. So hold it up to there. The narrowest point of the trunking is at the back, because it chamfers in. Is going to be these two holes here. So we're going to bring that out. I'll cut that one bigger. Bring that out here as well. That's within. And then we need to get the depth of it. You can see how much you've got to play with. And it's just sort of on the 32mm hole, so that's what we're going to go with. That's sort of what we're going to cut out. Because we've got everything in top entry, as much as I'd like to cut these out and put fire plugs in, we're going to have the space to put that many cables through because we're doing top entry. So we can angle grind that out, file it down, we can grommet strip that up, and if we wanted to afterwards, we can gunk it all up with fire sealant as well, from underneath and in top of the trunking, and then put the lid back on. Level already, beautiful. Plaster's gonna have a bit of a job filling the ceiling back in. That's okay though. He loves doing stuff like this for me. Right, next thing is I'm gonna just tape measure here to ceiling, get the trunking cut, get that in place, but be careful, like Chris has said, that he decided, Chris the plumber, brought the cable pipes up and then went across here. Chris, if you're watching, I know Chris can hear me as well. So what we would normally do in situations when you have plastic trunking is you need your premature collapse of fire. So you would have metal brackets held within, going in the trunking, that would pinch the cables in. So if there's ever a fire and the plastic trunking would melt off the wall, the cables are still supported if they're looped up and over to prevent cables coming down and people escaping or firefighters or anything like that. But this isn't going to cause, there's no fire exit this way, it's a window that doesn't open behind, it's above the fuse board, and it's such a short run with that many cables. I can put a bit of all-round band in, which I brought in here, but the risk that I might hit the pipes behind, I'm not going to go for it. So we will put a couple of screws in. I'm going to deem this as my competency. It's not necessary. Please put in the description below if you think otherwise, but I can't see this going to be an issue. That'll sit on there. I'll get the grommet strip in a minute as we pass that through, and we've got some super glue, bus glue. Best thing to do, it just push in, but if you take the board and you put a bit of glue on it, hold it in place, leave it for a few minutes, it's when you pull the cables through, the grommet strip doesn't pull off, and then you still don't have a grommet strip. I would always recommend with trunking, get 2 fixings either side with some washers. 2 down, 2 up. That'll allow it, because when you start putting this in, it is very flimsy, it'll just twist and then the lid never goes on properly. So the problem with doing fuse boards is it's all in the prep work. Once you get it on and start getting cables in, it does move pretty quick. But if you want it to look good and go well, you got to do the time and the effort now of prepping it, getting it neat, getting it square. Now we've got them in, we're going to try and bring through circuits that sort of correlate with each other, try and get them nice and neat and in order, and then we can start making the board off. When you're pulling through, just be careful. As much as you put loads of super glue on the inside here, the more you pull through, the more you tug it, it can come off. And if you don't want the horrible job of having to redo that when the cables are in it, just go slowly and steady. That's all in. I'm going to get the lid on now just to support that. We will put some fire sealant in here, in there, all that sort of stuff. Like I said, I put no grommet strip on this bit because there's no way the cables are going to hit on the main tails through there, so I'm happy with that. But we will put some fire sealant on it, just so it blends in, looks a bit nicer. Right, SPD kit. Main ISO, we've got terminal blocks for the second DIN rail, we've got our SPD kit, we've got a breaker to cover our SPD. SPD links, neutral link for the SPD, and then the neutral and live link for our terminal blocks from our top ISO down to the bottom. These will be linked into the bottom from the neutral link and also the live link to the buzz bar, so they'll be doubled over. You don't ever want to be putting dual tails into the top, because if they ever get loose over time, which they will heat up the most, and then you'll create a very hot spot and probably melting and maybe a fire and possible death, so don't do that. Different boards are laid out in different ways. Schneider want you to put your SPD here, your main ISO there, your breaker that covers the SPD there, all across the top of the buzz bar. SPD allows you, recovers you for surges up the line to protect the equipment afterwards. But you can start fitting SPDs before the fuse board within a certain distance between the main head, the meter and the board as well. They give you instructions. This is just a generic board, so you'll put your earth wire from here, which will level up as earth, into your earth block. You've got your live here, which will loop between your MCB up to your top of your SPD, and then you've got a neutral link, which is here, which will come from the bottom. So we'll pre-wire that, and then we'll get these ones in as well, and jam them in the top of the terminal block. You can wire this in now, you can wire it in afterwards. It just depends how much it's going to get in your way, to be honest. Neutral link is made off in two ways. One is a rounded edge and one is a flat edge. This is compressed to go within the bottom of the MCB. This is a rounded edge to allow it to go within the neutral bar. And we will go along afterwards, once the board is complete, with our torque screwdriver to give everything the correct torque setting, which will be either on the back of the fuse board or within the instructions as provided. That's all in. Next thing is I'm going to get my leads out the bottom of our breaker. It's going to link down to here. Oh no, is that link meant to be for here? We had a bit of a booby, so the neutral link that they sent me here actually wasn't for the SPD. It doesn't reach for the one they've sent me, and I think it's a kit from an older board. But not to fear, we can easily just get some 6 or 10 mil from the van, strip that out, put it in. I'm happy with that, it will work. We've cut down the links that they've put here, we've extended the link up here, so we're just going to get one for the SPD. Now that's sort of in and ready, we know what we're doing. The buzz bar's going to come out here, buzz bar's going to come out here. We'll put the tails in, we'll get them up out the way because they're the biggest and most annoying things in the world to do with a fuse board. And once that's done, we can start putting our RCBOs in, our link leads across. There's different ways to do it. Some people might like to, which I might do depending on how the day goes, is mark these out. You can get these stripped back now before you put the RCBOs in. But what we normally do is RCBOs, get the fly leads out, put them all in nice and neat, and then we just work on a circuit at a time. But every board is different to the way cables come through the RCBOs because we have the earth fly lead. There's one more fly lead in our way with Schneider. Other brands don't seem to have it anymore. So we've got to make it off in the way, in the process that we think at the time is the best and the quickest and the neatest. I mean, you could just lob it in, close the lid, and no one knows any different, but we'd like to try and do things a bit better. Right, so what I'm going to do now, which you don't have to, but I like to, we want to link our earth bars. The earth bar is screwed within the metal framework of the board and it's all earthed and hunky-dory, but I want to link these two earth bars. So I'm going to get a bit of 16mm earth, which is just excess of what we have here, and that's just going to come round, down, and then we'll loop that back round. Job is lovely. Right, so we're unpackaging these. We've just gone through a few of the different breaker sizes and we're missing a lot of 6 amps, but that's not really gonna get in our way today. We only really want to turn on downstairs lighting circuit because the lights are been pulled down upstairs, they're still plastered in certain rooms, so I'm only ever going to power up downstairs lights today, which is fine because we have one 6 amp RCBO. But we'll still make the board up, we'll strip it and get everything ready and label it up. There's loads of different ways for making off. This is a 2.5mm cable. You can double it over if you wanted to within the breaker itself to give it more surface area to fix. I don't really have an issue with it. We do it in the back of sockets because the terminal pins are very different and snug. They end up pinching the cable or slipping past it. But because this is like a slip anchor point where it's almost a cup that gets dragged to it. Even the single cable is perfect connection on it. Get it nice and tight, it ain't slipping, so I don't really double over on the boards. You might want to if you're using 1mm, but if you're doing this day in, day out, you can sort of feel what you think is right and what isn't, so again, it's personal judgment. So I wanted to put all the 20 amps together, which are down at the bottom, so they're all 20s, and then we will have 32s and then some 6s as well. Right, so 20 amps are done as best we can. I'm going to get a cable tie at some point on these earth fly leads. They don't carry any current, it's just a control across, to my knowledge, that just trips the RCDs. And they say you shouldn't cable tie stuff because of build up of heat and eddy currents and blah blah blah. Whatever, it's fine. It's in a domestic fuse board. It's a little cable tie, which isn't going to be done too tight. We're going to do the 32s now, up in here. We're not going to wire, are we? I'm not sure yet. And then we've got one 6 amp to go in, which I'm just going to do for downstairs light. And the rest of them, I'm just going to mark them up where they are, cut them, tape the ends so they're nowhere near the buzz bar. And we can do a few checks before we liven up. Because there's a good length still on these. I want to mark them up, snip them so I can curl them in the board, tape the ends up so we don't get any copper touching the buzz bar or any of the bars up there. And yeah, just make it a bit neat for next time. We're all ready, really. I do my dead test what I need and figure out what I'm going to put on. But I think the only thing I'm going to be putting on is number 6 is the boiler, and I'll put the utility sockets on as well, which will be number 2. So I can do my dead tests and my live tests, and the same thing with upstairs lights. What I might do now for safety reasons is I'll go and get some Wago, some lever connectors, leave them like this. I can't trust that someone's not going to come on site and go, oh, what's this one do? And just turn it on. So I'll get some Wagos, we'll pull these ones up that we're not using, we'll just connect them through and just leave the ones connected in the board that we're going to be livening up. We're just doing some testing. On ZE, we've got 0.23, which is decent, and we've got 1.02 KA. I put the Wagos in on here for the circuits that we're not going to be using, and do a few more tests on this, and then I've run the camera around with you about putting the board on. And the metal blanks that I've got in my bag that we're going to stick in them as well. We're not going to sticker anything up for the time being. We've got a list here of what does what. There's only going to be 3 circuits on, which will be utility sockets, boiler and downstairs lights. The rest of them are all unwired or not, or literally still taped up. Then in the new year, I'll have some more. I've run out of tape for my label printer, but it does come with stickers, like I said earlier, which are nice sheet, but I'd rather put my new ones on, are really good, nice and neat, that fill the board up, sit where they need to be, and we can put the rest of the information on. So let me whiz around, do a few more tests, and then we'll put the board cover on. See this? Tidying up, that's what it's called. Someone needs to have a word with the plasterers, because they haven't tidied anything up. So these ones clip in. Don't get me wrong with it, they're better than they used to be, but you can pull them out if you wanted to. That's a very extreme version. But these ones slot in like that. So once they're in, you physically can't pull them out. So what we need to do is figure out which ones are going to be blanks up on the board, slide them in roughly where we want, and as we put the board up, we can just slide them across. Well, I'll do. My fingers hurt. Right, now's the fun bit. Obviously this board is live, so we need to be careful where we're sticking our fingers and toes. What we equally. So they're okay on the left. It's these ones. So we'll one off a breaker, which will be about there. Beautiful. There we go. That's on. Just check the top. Please just go on. And use the right screwdriver, that's definitely going to help. That is on. And I'll be honest, it's a nice looking board. It's clean. I like the white because some colours of some of the boards are a bit creamy. It's a solid white, it's a good height. Once you've got the labels in, probably do them at the top, there and there. That'll look nice. Just a couple more breakers to go in, RCBOs for the lights in the new year, and then we're finished. Right, come to the end of the day. This is, it's been an experience fitting this. It's something different for me. Obviously, we normally do other brands, single stack. I've only done, I think, 2 other dual stack boards ever, which was a Hager and a fuse box one. Schneider, something a bit different. I actually have the same one of this in my house, but obviously single stack. We'll wait on the breakers for the new year, and we can get the rest of the house tested and finished off, and hopefully we'll have the wall lights then, so we can tick this off, done and dusted, and we can move across to the cottage.